Who's Peter Parker and why do the Avengers want to sue him? By GhostBeanie. Chapter 1. Spider-Man didn't expect the Avengers to get angry on his behalf. Not that he thought that they didn't care about him, they did. He just didn't expect that. It was a late afternoon Friday when Spider-Man decided to swing by the Avengers Tower. He usually visited on Fridays, so it wasn't unexpected. Spider-Man had long since become acquainted, friends, with the Avengers team. Fighting together against weakly aliens / other threats makes people grow close. They didn't know his identity though, and Spider-Man liked to keep it that way. Not that he didn't trust them, he just didn't want them to freak out because of his age and try to force him to stop Spider-Manning. He didn't want to risk what they had now, even if it meant keeping the mask on. As usual, Spider-Man entered through the windows on the Avengers floor. He silently thanked Friday for automatically opening a window for him. Almost no one noticed him, except for maybe Natasha Romanoff, but she was a super spy. She didn't mention anything to the others, though. In the background, he could hear a TV. Were they watching the news? Spider-Man also noticed that there seemed to be some tension in the team. Were they fighting over something? It happened from time to time, but was mostly friendly squabbles, nothing serious. But now he had the feeling that something serious had happened. "Hey everyone, your favourite friendly neighbourhood Spider-Man has arrived. What's up?" Spider-Man decided to finally speak up, since still no one had noticed him. Everyone's attention snapped to him, and various greetings were heard. "Ah, Spidey, good to see you here." Tony smiled at him, but there was a tenseness he couldn't hide. Something was wrong. "There seems to be some tension here. Did something happen?" Spider-Man decided to just address the elephant in the room. Maybe he could help alleviate the tension. "It's nothing you have to worry about." Tony waved his hand dismissively. "I think he does," Steve Rogers intervened. "We were talking about something concerning you." "What? Oh shit. Are they going to arrest me? Are they annoyed about my secret identity? Do they want to force me to reveal myself? Do they want to kick me out of the team? Wait, I'm not even an Avenger, they can't kick me out." Spider-Man tried to hide his inner turmoil, but couldn't help but tense up a little. "Really? I'm flattered I'm that interesting that the Avengers talk about me in their free time. But I hope only good things, right?" "Hey, bud, you didn't do anything bad," Clint Barton said, seemingly having picked up on his nervousness. "We're talking about how some people only seem to talk bad about you, although you never do any bad things." He pointed to the TV where Spider-Man only now realised the news from the Daily Bugle was playing. More specifically, J. Jonah Jameson. It seemed like they were talking about him, and they weren't particularly nice. Not that it was anything new to him. The Daily Bugle, especially Triple J as Spider-Man liked to call him, never tried to hide their dislike for him. "Oh, you're talking about that? Don't worry about it. No one takes them seriously anyway." He waved off dismissively. "But we do worry about it, Spidey. You're one of us. We can't just stand by and watch someone slander your name." "Especially this Peter Parker," Tony added. "He always takes photos of you. Doesn't he know that this could be illegal?" Now Spider-Man was panicking a little again. It was nice that they cared so much about him, but he didn't want them to go into a conflict with the media. He wasn't that important that they should ruin their good reputation, just because one news station was talking bad about a vigilante. Not to mention they specifically knew about Peter Parker. If the Avengers had him on their radar, it would become even more difficult to do his things. "Really, it's fine." Since they still shot him some dubious looks, even after his statement, he decided to try an evasion tactic. "Are you all still up for movie night? If no one says something, I'm going to decide what we'll be watching." This seemed to work, as everyone relaxed and broke out into a large discussion about what movie they wanted to see. Spider-Man was glad to have evaded that topic. Little did he know that was just the start for one big mess. Peter Parker noticed that he was short on money when he wanted to buy lunch. His wallet had been completely empty and he had had to sit hungry through the rest of the school day. Even Ned's offered gummy bears didn't help much, not with his superhuman metabolism. And when he got home, he noticed that his piggy bank was low on money too, so it wasn't just an empty wallet. He sighed a little. He didn't want to have to ask Aunt May for more money again. She already worked enough. Guess I have to do that again. So Peter grabbed his camera and Spider-Man suit, tucking the latter into his backpack, and he left again. In a hidden alley, Peter donned his spider suit and tucked away his backpack, which meant that he was webbing it to a wall. Didn't want anyone to steal his things. It had happened enough times before. He still kept his camera with him, though. He needed it for what he was planning to do. Climbing up on the roof was easy. Once there, Spider-Man carefully placed his camera and turned it on. Looking at the display, he checked if the lighting and angle were good before starting the timer. Quickly, he jumped to the next roof and got himself ready. The picture looked great. Spider-Man did some more before he was finally satisfied and returned home again. Peter entered the newspaper office later that afternoon. He was greeted by a familiar face, one of his classmates, Betty, who was interning there. She smiled at him before pointing him toward Triple J's office. "Hey, Peter, got some new photos for the boss. He doesn't have any meetings right now, so you're free to enter," she told him. "Hi, Betty," Peter nodded. "And yes, I got some nice photos right here." Then he entered JJJ's personal office. Not before knocking, though. Aunt May had raised him to be polite after all. "Who's there? Ah, it's you, Peter. Did you manage to get some new photos of that menace? We ran out of any good photos to use." Jameson greeted him. "I did, Mr. Jameson." "Great." Peter could almost see him rubbing together his hands in glee. He probably already thought about all the articles he could use Peter's photos for. Peter sat down on the opposite side of the man's desk and took the map with his pictures out of the backpack. "Here." He handed them over to Jameson and watched him go through them. Some he set aside and some he put back. After he finished, he returned the rest to Peter. "These are the only good ones. Tell my secretary to give you the usual price." Peter nodded. "Goodbye, Mr. Jameson." He quickly left the office again. Triple J seemed to be in a good mood today. He didn't want to push his luck. Betty paid him for the photos he managed to sell and asked him if he was seeing MJ today, which he didn't. Then he said goodbye and left. The next day, a new article about the menace Spider-Man appeared. One of his photos decorated the title page. Peter didn't read the article. The next few days went by without much happening. Peter went to school, hung out with MJ and Ned, and went out as Spider-Man in the late afternoon and night. That was until he got a call from May at the end of school. At first, he was really worried. He almost jumped out of his seat to run to her, but she reassured him that she wasn't hurt. This only calmed him down slightly because there was a tone in her voice that said something else. Then she asked him, "Can you come directly home? I know you want to hang out with your friends, but—" "Don't worry, Aunt May," Peter interrupted. "I don't mind at all. I'm on my way then. Love you." "Love you too, Pete." Peter wasted no time grabbing his backpack and telling MJ and Ned that he couldn't hang out with them today. They didn't mind, probably realising that an emergency happened. So Peter rushed home as fast as he could, which was quite fast. He's Spider-Man after all. Finally, he reached their house. Aunt May greeted him when he entered. "Hey, Peter, you have some guests that want to talk to you." She looked slightly nervous, but was still earnestly smiling. Peter concluded that the guest was unexpected, but that May wasn't in life-threatening danger. His spider sense told him the same. He was humming a little stronger than usual, but it wasn't telling him that there was an active threat. So he smiled at May and entered the living room. Peter almost stopped dead in his tracks. Was that Tony sitting in his living room? With Steve, aka Captain America? Did they find out I'm Spider-Man and decided to confront me? He was even more panicking than that one time at the tower. "Hello, Peter Parker, I presume," Tony greeted him. Yes," he managed to stutter out. "I'm sure you know who we are, and frankly we're busy, so I'm cutting this short." "So they are here because of Spider-Man." "We're going to sue you." "Wait, what?" What? Now Steve was speaking too. We're filing a lawsuit against you because you have illegally taken photos of Spider-Man and sold these to a news station that slanders him. This can be considered as defamation. Peter was gaping. The Avengers were suing him because he took photos. No, selfies of himself. He had to remind himself that they didn't know he was Spider-Man. But Peter was just too flabbergasted. Wait. But Tony and Steve were already standing up. That'd be all. We have nothing more to say. But if I were you, I would get a lawyer. With that, they both left, before Peter could even say another peep. Now where could he get a good lawyer? Spider-Man sat on a roof in Hell's Kitchen, sighing to himself. He was so consumed in his own world that he barely noticed someone approaching him. You shouldn't let your guard down. He jumped at the gruff voice, but relaxed instantly when he recognised who it was. Don't worry, DD, I doubt anyone but you would climb up here. Daredevil sighed. Just don't let your guard down again. Then, after a short pause, you seem troubled. I don't think you should patrol if you're feeling like that. Normally Spider-Man would protest, but not this time. I know, I just wanted a quiet place to think, and what better place than a rooftop? So there is a problem. Yeah. Spider-Man stopped for a moment. Should he really tell Daredevil about his problems? They sometimes teamed up and he would call them friends, or at least colleagues, but they didn't know each other's identity, and honestly fighting crimes together and sharing personal problems with each other were two completely different things. In the end, he decided to do it anyway. There was nothing to lose, right? A friend of mine got sued by the Avengers. He could feel Daredevil turning his head at him. Oh, really? Yeah, he takes photos of me and sells them to the Daily Bugle for some pocket money. The Avengers didn't like that. They visited him today and told him that they would sue him and that he should get a lawyer. I didn't even know that they wanted to do that. Rapidly, Spider-Man told him what happened, of course leaving out the part that he was Peter Parker. So your friend Peter Parker, the photographer for the Daily Bugle, is getting sued because he took photos of you since the Avengers don't know you let him do that. Yeah. That is a problem. I know, but I always let him take them. He needs the money and... Well, maybe I could help your friend. Spider-Man perked up. Really? Maybe the situation wasn't as bad as he thought. Yes, I know some really good lawyers. You could refer Peter to them if you want. Nelson and Murdock. They're stationed here in Hell's Kitchen. Excited, Spider-Man jumped up. Thank you, DD, so much. I'm gonna tell Peter about it. He really wanted to hug him, but refrained. Daredevil probably wouldn't like that. Daredevil chuckled. Don't worry, I'm just helping out a fellow vigilante. Still, thank you so much. I have to go now. With these words, Spider-Man waved goodbye and jumped off. The next day, Peter walked down the street in Hell's Kitchen. He made his way to the lawyer Daredevil had recommended him. Hopefully they could help him get out of this mess. The building seemed a little old and run down, but sturdy. Peter double-checked that it was the right address before he entered and made his way up the stairs. In front of the door was a neat sign that read, Nelson and Murdock Law Attorney. He was at the right place. Peter took a calming breath and knocked. Come in, he heard a female voice call out. He did exactly that. At a desk sat a blonde woman, the owner of the voice. Welcome to Nelson and Murdock. How can I help you? Hello, I'm Peter Parker. I got recommended here by a friend. Hello, Peter. I'm Karen Page. I assume you want to talk to one of our lawyers. Yes, Peter nodded eagerly. Well, both Matt and Foggy are currently out to get some coffee, but they'll be back in a few minutes if you can wait. Yes, I can do that. The next few minutes were spent in awkward silence. Peter fiddled with the hem of his sweater while Karen was sorting some papers. He was relieved when he could finally hear 2 people walking up the stairs. 2 men entered, one with blonde hair put together in the back and one with dark short hair, red glasses and a cane. Both of them looked a little surprised. Karen, who's this? This is Peter Parker. He is here for some legal advice. Hi. Peter waved awkwardly. Why was this a good idea again? Maybe he should leave. Well, if that's so, we can go to my office. I'm Matt Murdock, the dark-haired man said with a small smile. Nice to meet you, Mr. Murdock. Somehow he had the feeling that he had met Matt Murdock before. He seemed weirdly familiar, but Peter was sure that he had never seen him before. You can call me Matt. Peter nodded. The others seemed to agree, and Peter entered an office together with Matt, where they sat down on opposite sides. So, Peter, why would you need our help? Well, he hesitated for a moment. I got sued by the Avengers. Matt raised a brow, but somehow didn't look as surprised as Peter expected someone to be when they heard that the Avengers sued some teenage boy. So you want our help with that? Can you tell me some more? Peter did. He told everything he knew, leaving out that he was Spider-Man, but slightly mentioning that he knew Spider-Man personally and that he didn't mind the photos. It seems that you sold pictures in agreement with Spider-Man, yes? Yes. If we could prove that, the claims would be false. So, you'll help me? Peter couldn't help but sound hopeful. Of course, we'll work on it and inform you of any new information. After that, everything went surprisingly quickly. Peter walked home with a lighter weight on his shoulders. Chapter 2. Spider-Man had always wondered how long he could stick to a surface without moving. The answer was quite long. He definitely wasn't buying time to not have to talk with the Avengers today. Nope, no sir. Spider-Man definitely would never do that. But maybe he was a little nervous, which he shouldn't be. He had done it 1,000 times before, and he wasn't even forced to do it. He wanted to meet with them and talk, but maybe he should wait for a few more minutes. The air was quite nice out there. Spidey, why are you just hanging there? Don't you want to come in? Man, of course they would find me hanging out here. How embarrassing. Spider-Man didn't have an excuse, so he finally entered through the open window. He was now in the common room where most of the Avengers were assembled right now. To hide his nervousness, Spidey put his hands on his hips and stood as tall and strong as he could. Time to assert dominance, he thought. Underoos, what are you doing? The Avengers, on the other hand, looked dubiously at him. Well, my fellow friends, I've heard you've been causing some trouble on my behalf, Spider-Man said in his deepest and sternest voice that he could manage. What are you talking about? The confusion only seemed to grow. Well, here goes nothing. You know, I have a very dear friend. He's an amazing guy, really cool and stuff. He doesn't really like his job, but he loves to take photos and stuff. So I decided to help my dear friend Peter to earn some money by posing for his photos. And now I've heard that you want to sue him without my knowledge. He shook his head. I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. The silence that followed lasted only for a moment before chaos broke out. Wait, you're posing for photos? Friends with Peter? What? Peter Parker? How? After a moment, Natasha spoke up, as she had been quiet before. Only her raised eyebrow had indicated some sort of surprise. So in summary, you want to tell us that you willingly worked with Peter Parker for these photos, knowing that they would be used to write defaming articles about you? Yes, Spider-Man nodded. That somehow doesn't make any sense, but also makes so much sense, Clint says. I mean, Parker is the only one who gets good photos of you. No one else is able to get anything but a blurry mess. So I guess you want us to drop the defamation lawsuit? Yes, that would be preferable. To seem more convincing, Spider-Man flashed a thumbs up. They all looked a little torn, on one hand understanding that Spider-Man didn't want his friend to get in trouble, but on the other hand also not wanting their good friend Spider-Man to receive negative backlash. I already talked with Peter and he agreed to stop selling pictures, Spider-Man added to make it more convincing for them. He would have to find another way to earn money now, but he could deal with that later. Fine, but the Bugle won't get away so easily. Okie dokie. Spider-Man flashed another thumbs up. He could live with that. Having that out of the way, who wants to watch Back to the Future with me? Feeling relieved, Spider-Man jumped onto the sofa and was able to enjoy the movie night with the lack of the looming lawsuit waiting for him. Communication was a great thing. You said Peter Parker only sold the photos because he needed money. Spider-Man was a little surprised at Tony's words. The subject of Peter Parker hadn't come up in a few weeks. Thankfully, the Avengers had listened to him and dropped the lawsuit. They even visited him, as Peter Parker, and they were now on friendly terms with his alter ego, which was nice but also quite stressing. What if they started to notice some similarities between Peter Parker and Spider-Man? Or that Spider-Man was never in the same room as Peter? He had been relieved that no one had mentioned his civilian persona in quite a while. But why bring it up again? Yeah, why? I've been looking into Peter Parker. Oh no. And I've noticed that he goes to Midtown High School, a science school, which must mean that Parker is good at science, right? He is. He even worked with me on my web shooters. Really? Well, since the problem was money, I thought I'd give him an internship. Bam! Problem solved. He never needs to sell photos again, gets to work in science, which he likes, and he gets to meet me, the great Tony Stark. Well, what do you think, Underoos? He'd like that, right? With that, Tony turned towards Spider-Man. Mr. Tony Stark wants me to be his intern. I can work with him. My dreams are coming true. I think I can die happy now. But wouldn't it be easier to figure out that I'm Spider-Man that way? Oh no, I want to accept, but it's too risky. Spidey? Spider-Man got interrupted from his thought process, and he realised that he hadn't answered. I'm sure Peter would be really happy for this opportunity, and he'll definitely accept. Oh, why did I say that? Well, that's good. Let's inform him then. Sure, I just noticed I have to go somewhere. See you later. Quickly, Spider-Man did his retreat without waiting for an answer. Oh man, why did I say that? Now I have to accept. Not that I don't want to, but it'll be way easier now to figure out my identity. Peter Parker was quite nervous about his internship with Mr. Stark, but was also really excited. It had always been a dream of his to work side by side with him. Not as Spider-Man, but as him, little old Peter. But he was also a little scared. He didn't want anyone from the Avengers to find out yet. He had been toying with the thought of just telling them, even more since the whole suing debacle. He wanted to tell them on his own terms and didn't want them to find out during some unlucky accident or so. But he didn't feel quite ready yet. It wasn't that he didn't trust them. He did. But what they had now was so good. He didn't want to lose that or have it changed just because they knew who he was behind the mask, or because of his age. Peter was scared of how they'd react, even though he knew that his thoughts were most likely overreacting, creating the worst possible outcome that wouldn't happen. He knew that, but he still couldn't stop himself from asking, what if? What if they reacted like he imagined? He just wouldn't be able to bear it if that happened. So he was nervous and happy, and also scared. He just needed a little more time, just a teeny tiny bit more, so he could finally find the courage to tell them, just a little longer. It was another movie night with the Avengers, but at the same time it was far from the usual night, because Spider-Man had finally decided. Today was the day he would tell them his civilian identity. Today he would show them the person behind the mask. You know them, nothing can go wrong, they won't hate you. He tried to give himself some courage. He felt slightly wobbly, but it wasn't exactly the feeling of fear. More so, the feeling of anticipation. He really wanted to tell them and show who he really was. Working with them as Peter had made this wanting to grow even more. He didn't want to hide anymore. He wanted to be careful not to let anything slip in either of his identities that could give it away. He wanted to be both Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Hey, Spidey, what movie do you want to watch? Thank you all for coming. We have all gathered here to talk about something of very big importance. Spider-Man, are you alright? Did you get into trouble? Here goes nothing. Ignoring all the concerned Avengers, and with a swift motion, Spider-Man removed his mask. I want to say that I trust you all, and also, I'm Spider-Man, also known as Peter Parker. So, hi? He added a small wave to underline his words. A lot of jaws dropped at that moment. I still can't believe you essentially sold selfies of yourself. It wasn't my first choice either, but it's kind of funny how JJJ likes me, but also talks bad about me in front of me. I still can't believe we tried to sue you in the name of yourself for selling pictures of you. Haha. Didn't we have a case about a Peter Parker that got sued by the Avengers? We did, but that was resolved quite quickly, as the Avengers retracted their lawsuit. Huh. Why would they sue someone just to retract it again? Who knows, maybe it was all some big misunderstanding. Thank you for listening. I really hope you've enjoyed. Have a lovely rest of your day.